Today is October 9th. This is the Committee on Ways and Means. I'm going to call the meeting to order, and if I could ask Councilmember Mitchell if he would give us an invocation.
Let's bow our heads. Dear Lord and Father of all mankind, forgive our foolish ways. Clothe us in our rightful mind and deeper reference praise. Father, as we come here to do work for the betterment of the citizens of the city of Charleston, let us be mindful for the task that you have given us. And let us know that we are here as servant. And if we think that we are more of a servant, then we need to probably leave. Because a lot of things are going on, and I've heard today, and my heart was heavy of what I was hearing from some people today, that we need to make sure that we are thinking about everyone who lives in the city of Charleston, not just a few. And that's one thing with me, and I'm trying to be obedient to your will and not mine. These blessed and I ask in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes for September 18th. The 25th have been deferred. I got a motion. Is there a second? Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. Item 3 is Fire Department's approval to accept the 2018 Port Security Grant. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? And the ayes have it. Item 4 is Fire Department approval of 2018 State Homeland Security Grant. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. Item 5, Public Service.
So moved.
Calhoun West Design Contract Amendment Number 2. Councilman Moody.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know that we had our meeting, I think it was last month, it may have been the one before that, we talked about this item. I'm a little bit concerned about voting for this thing with this $6 million there. I'm trying to figure out a way to keep this Calhoun West project moving, but I don't believe that $6 million, I mean, to spend that money right now, and we got a $250 million project there, that's such a drop in the bucket. We do need to move forward with this planning. Later on, we're going to be dealing with this, I think it's a $3 million project that the Corps of Engineers is going to start undertaking, and see where all of that goes before we commit to this $6 million. I'm not sure exactly how to take this off. I know this bonded money has been set aside for this, and we may need some legal action or some council action to change that priority, if you will. So I'm trying to figure out how to kind of change this to let this $300,000 or $400,000 actually get spent on this study. We're expanding this thing here. I'm willing to go there, but I'm not willing to commit the $6 million. So if some of my colleagues could maybe help me, or council could, our legal counsel could help us.
So let me first, maybe I can recognize Ms. Cabinet and let her.
So tonight, all we are asking is for the $400,000 right now. We've got the $600 million that's been set aside in the bond issue. We're asking for $400,000 out of it.
$600 million?
Sorry.
$6 million.
Oh, so you just solved a lot of problems.
Yeah, for me too.
Yeah.
That's a very good triple.
So, but this project, going through it, what we've determined is it's so linked to the other lower basins in this project that we've got to expand the limits of this project. And this will keep us going in the right direction. The Corps, when they do their study, the Corps, and they've told us this many times, they do not look at internal drainage. They're going to look at what's happening with sea level rise in the perimeter of the city. And so this is going to be taken into account in whatever the Corps study recommends. But my recommendation to you, and I hope you will support it, is that we keep moving this project forward. And the only other thing I'd say, this is how we got Spring Fishburne going, and this is how we're going to get projects going West Ashley, is we have got to keep the money flowing to get the design to a point that we can ask for federal assistance and ask for state SIB money. So very important that we keep this going if we're going to keep going with this project.
Councilman Jackson.
Yeah. Did you have?
Yeah, let me follow up with that, because this stuff keeps coming back on our Ways and Means agenda, and it seems to be like maybe it ought to be going through our committee,
Public Works
committee, to kind of vet some of these questions so that we don't have to deal with them all, that can come out of Public Works. So, you know, I would, maybe an amendment would be appropriate, that we just approve that, and that the future of these things come back through Public Works. Would that be appropriate?
Be happy to do that.
And I'll make that as amendment to this.
Thank you.
All right. Councilwoman Jackson.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I would totally agree with the clarification that Ms. Kavanaugh gave us, Mr. Moody, in terms of we don't yet know what we don't know. And I think that that's a theme of a lot of the territory throughout Charleston, including all of our Sea Island lands. And so we've got that kind of pent-up demand, I would call it, to study and to make sure that we've got the correct scope of the basins and the watersheds and all of the terminology that I'm learning rapidly as I can, to make sure that we've got the right game plans, because we know in the past we haven't. So I would always support that we can't spend too many funds to get it right in the beginning, as opposed to starting out on something that's more hard cost and then have to course correct along the way. So that's just my opinion about having done this in the housing realm and other infrastructure things. I've never had to deal with water until now, but I do think that planning and making sure we've got the right scope and the right implementation plan ahead of us, that saves us money in the long run. So I would support this, and I agree with you about bringing it forward to Public Works. I think that's a great place for us all to be educated.
All right, in order, Councilman Griffin, Sakins, and we'll come back to Ms. Moody.
I have kind of a question and a comment. Of this 1.5 million out of the Gateway TIF, how much of that have we already allocated for this project? All of it? I mean, could we, this 394,000 or whatever, couldn't we just allocate the money out of the TIF for that and save the 6.4? Or do we
this is raising the contract.
He's asking if we're going to spend money from TIF versus drain.
Yeah, that's where I'm getting at. We're up to 1.9 now, so I'm guessing that's why we've got to bring this 6.4 into the equation now.
Right.
I just want to make one point on that too. You know, this money that's still sitting out here from 2012 that we haven't used yet. You know, one argument that, you know, kind of supports what Councilmember Moody was saying, and another reason why, you know, I'm kind of in the same boat where I want this project to move forward, but I'm a little nervous at the same time. You know, our priorities have changed a lot since 2012. I think we can all agree that where we thought we were headed in 2012, as we were building a lot, to now realizing that we've got some serious issues. And I think that if we could go back, and in this case, we might have a chance to revisit this money, we, at this stage right now, would spend it differently than they would have in 2012. So I want us to consider that if we've got money that's still sitting out there that we might be able to appropriate. You know, our top priority is flooding for this year, and we have some serious areas of Charleston affect thousands and thousands of people. So, you know, that's all I want us to be diligent in how we spend our money. And if there's stuff that's hanging out from, you know, a previous council, we have to look at where we are today because we're correcting some of the mistakes that have been made previously.
Councilor Sakins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So on this one, what this does is expands the scope of the study area for the Calhoun West project to include but not be limited to the hospital district, which wasn't necessarily in it before. We actually saw sort of an advance idea about that from our team, which is here if you want to ask any questions. This is, in the end, what has been realized over the course of the last few years in studying this is that you can put a couple basins together and basically capture the entire west side of the peninsula, including the hospital districts. What this money will be expended for is with Davis and Floyd to get that engineering done in a preliminary way, so we then as a city can take our project to the market, because this is going to be a massive project that we're not going to be able to finance on our own, but we can't go to the markets without a good design. We've got the money sitting there to make sure this design gets done right, and that's what this is about. And it's going to be the same for every project we've got out there on both sides of the river. We've got to make sure, if we know we've got a problem, we've got a design team in place that puts the project there so we understand it and how it's going to work, so we then can go to both the public and the private debt markets to help us go and build these projects. Without this, there is no drainage underneath the hospital. There's no helping Calhoun West. It'll be the same when we get to West Ashley, we get into Church Creek. In order to get the monies to do what we need to do, we've got to have it drawn up, and that's what this is doing. We have the money there. Amy, I think you said it's been sitting there for a good long time. It's a little bit of a matter of semantics where it comes from. Both of these available sources of funding to put ourselves in a place to be able to take a project that we can't fund, but we can design and have it ready to go when the funding becomes available. It's a good expenditure of money. I mean, certainly it should come through Public Works, but this is, I mean, the hospital district, 15,000 people work there. It's where we all go to get well. It's a place that if it's shut down 5, 6, 7, 10 times a year, we're out of business. So I highly recommend we get this thing moving forward and make sure we protect monies going forward so it's spent in the right way.
Councilman Moody?
Yeah, the other question I had was, Ms. Wharton, the 1.5 that's on here for the TIF money, what does that consist of? Is this just the money available that's kind of for right now? Is this going to be, are we going to be getting $200,000 or $300,000 or $400,000 a year for that? I'm not sure exactly where that gateway TIF is and how much more is going to be generated from that. And if that's the case, if we're going to get more money, could we just loan the 300 and something thousand to get this project underway and then use that future TIF money to pay for that?
I'd have to look to see if we could do that this year. So we plan to allocate some money, but that TIF money is also committed to Spring Fishburne for a while. So we have that money committed, and at the end of the TIF, there will probably be, you know, a good chunk of money left over at the end of it that we could obviously apply to more drainage projects within that district. But for right now, every year, we just kind of watch it to see. The 1.5 was basically to purchase those two properties that we needed for the shaft, I believe.
Yeah, and that's really my point here with all, I mean, that TIF money has to be spent within the TIF. It's not available for anywhere for James Island, Johns Island, Daniel, any of them. And so we use that money to do these kind of projects first, not last. And we shouldn't have any money left over at the end of the TIF. We should pay for studies and things like that. That's what it's for infrastructure. And so this is a big piece of that.
Right.
So that's why I'm saying is if we're going to spend this, I'm not trying to object to spending it because I agree with Councilmember Seekings that we need to move forward on this. But if that money is available, it ought to go to pay back the city for this rather than just to be spent on a sidewalk or something because we got it left over.
Yeah, and our intent is not to use it on sidewalks, but just every year, whatever's committed, you know, we're kind of looking at to see what the balance would be. So when some of these things come up, we look at it and say, okay, can we use a TIF for that? And so we are doing that all the time, you know, throughout the year, just watching the balances and doing that.
Okay.
Okay.
Go to Mr. Mayor and then Councilman Lewis.
So Amy shared some information with me earlier today that we've spent $1,451,000, almost $1.5 million on the Calhoun West Drainage Improvement Project to date. So we've almost spent as much as the TIF money, you know, and so we'd be getting into spending dollars from the bond from 2012, which I wasn't mayor then, and some of y'all weren't on council, but the mayor and city council approved a bond in 2012 for water drainage projects that were identified from the city's master stormwater plan. It did not include doing the project, but it did include doing the design for this project. Okay, and it's specified in the bond. Attorney Charleston Desisord shared this with me this afternoon after I talked with Councilmember Shealy and Griffin about it. I wanted to verify for myself, but it's the bond specifies that the Forest Acres Drainage Improvement Project, West Ashley, be included, the Market Street Drainage Improvement Project, the planning and design work for the Calhoun West drainage improvement project. So it certainly was specified in this bond what we're approving tonight.
Could you read that again, the first part of it? There was like 3 projects, the last of which was the, what were the others?
Well, I didn't read them in order, but I can if you like me to.
I don't think
Yeah.
it's a priority, it's just.
Yeah. Such projects include the Market Street Drainage Improvement Project, Division 2 Tunnels and Shafts, and Division 3 Surface Collection System located in the Peninsula. I think all that applied to the Market Street Drainage Improvement. We've done the tunnels and the shaft, but we haven't done the complete collection system yet, but we're starting soon. The Forest Acres Drainage Improvement Project located West Ashley, which we're received award on, and we're starting phase 2 soon. The planning and design work for the Calhoun West Drainage Improvement Project located on the peninsula, and the Wagner Terrace Storm Drain Replacement Project located on the peninsula. I don't even have any information about that one, but yeah.
Mr. Lewis?
The Gateway Trip, this starts down Calhoun Street. That's the trip that comes down from the aquarium. Wasn't some of that money, maybe 12 years ago, some of that money was supposed to be used for the Spring Canyon streetscape? I remember voting on that. I mean, the reason, I remember I was a city councilman, the reason we supported building the aquarium is some of that TIF money that would go to do the streetscape improvements along Spring and Canyon.
That TIF
Look
district,
back at it. I mean, it's
I'll have to, I don't remember that being part of the TIF, but I'll look and make
please do,
sure.
'cause
I
I
will.
remember some of it.
it's been used for all kinds of things, including helping with the Go Yard and the aquarium, and the original streetscape for Upper King Street was part of the funding was from that. I remember from the 90s.
No, I was there. I could believe it.
All right, any further discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? And the ayes have it. Item 6 is public service approval of Church Creek Drainage Basin Analysis. Addendum number 20. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? And the ayes have it. Item 7 is capital projects approval of construction contract with Charles Blanchard Construction, amount of $139,122 to complete renovations of the restrooms and aquarium garage. And is there a second? Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Now, ayes have it. Item 8 is budget and finance revenue collection approval Blue Cross Blue Shield stop loss renewal in the amount of $1,097,144. There was a motion. Was there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Now, ayes have it. Item 9, budget and finance revenue collection ordinance and issuance and sale of $15 million general obligation bond for City of Charleston. Is there a motion? So moved. I don't think that's fair that I got to do it from up here, but I will, I assure you that.
I'll second it.
You're a good man, I tell you. Yeah. Any discussion? And turn his microphone off. Yeah, Councilman Moody.
$1 million for Daniel Allen. I wasn't sure about the other 5, but I know that was on the new center that we promised 20 years ago, so.
It's not quite 10. We'll end up with about 8.5. And then, do you want to run through the list of the other items? I think this has gone through the recreation.
It will be general because we have a lot of recreation needs, but for the Daniel Allen Rec Center, $8.5 to $9 million. Then we have Moultrie Playground, the golf course, planning to do the Parks and Recreation Master Plan with that bond as well, and then there'll probably be a little bit of funds left over, possibly Stony Field. Am I missing something? I don't think I'm missing anything. Yeah, that's about it.
How much was on the golf course?
Well, we're hoping to have that half contributions for half of it, so it'll be $1.5 to $2 million for the golf course.
And that's to do what out there?
Renovation. Do the whole renovation. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I know that I got a list of items. Did I send that to you? I think I did.
Lori and I spoke.
Or looking at that, okay.
They've sent it to me, so I have that information as well.
Yeah. And the stuff, the statistics on
Yes.
where the money could come from possibly. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it, and I'm going to stop right there and take one point of order and just say thank you all for that. This is an item, even though you made me sort of cringe a little bit there for a second and do a freeze and double take, but I appreciate that. But as you all know and have been know on council, I've been working on this project for probably 9 or 10 years. And so to get to this point where we actually have not only got a funding source, we're breaking ground, it's a big monumentous day. So I appreciate y'all's support and the conjecture too as well. So, Councilwoman Jackson.
Chairman, I would just like to congratulate you on that success. I have lots of increasing number of friends, kids of friends who are starting their families on Daniel Island, and it really is, I heard you quoted in the paper of saying you'd miss the boat with your own children, but you will be benefiting a lot of little kids, so
Absolutely.
Congratulations.
Absolutely. And then one other item I will say as part of the bond funding, you know, doing a master plan for recreation across the entire city is really a great idea. You know, one of the things that really we did as part of the recreation center on Daniel Island was we did a master plan or a study and developed a master plan for recreation across Daniel Island, Canahoy to understand sort of what the needs were and where our gaps were. And so although we talked earlier this evening about speaking of gaps and budgets, but the reality is that recreation is a huge component of what makes quality of life great for our city. And so being able to go through that exercise, I think will be very, very valuable to help building sort of a roadmap, if you will, for recreation for our community in the future. So thank you all again. All right, let's see, going further. Mayor, did you have something you want to say? Okay.
Next one. If you
Okay, item 10 is the Executive Department. This is agreement
Second.
with the Army Corps of Engineers. Okay, Mr. Mayor?
So this is a remarkable opportunity for our city, and at the help of the Corps of Engineers and our federal government, we were speaking earlier in our little budget workshop of the need for additional dollars for all these drainage projects that we need. And this is a pathway, a real pathway for us to enable us to be able to get some federal funding for some of the projects that we need so badly. And the way it works is the Corps of Engineers does a study and they identify the projects that they recommend will do the job. And those projects that they get the Corps of Engineers stamp of approval then are entitled in a way or considered for federal funding. And so this is our avenue to get some federal money for some real help. And so I just want to thank our federal representatives in Washington. This past January when I was in Washington for the U.S. Conference of Mayors meeting, our resilience officer, Mark Wilbert, met me up there, and we visited all of our delegations' offices and their staff, and actually met with Congressman Sanford and Senator Graham, and briefly with Senator Scott. But all four, including Congressman Clyburn, recognized our need. They figured out a way that they could help us. They prescribed to us that this was a way that would get us in line for future federal funding for projects that get that stamp of approval from the Corps of Engineers. They plan to come here tomorrow to sign the document with us. So I view this as a terrific thing and urge everyone to support it. I don't have to put any money into it, so I have no reason not to.
The best part of that whole thing is the last sentence. There is no fiscal impact to the city.
There you go.
Right, that's right. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? And the ayes have it. Item 11 is the Committee on Real Estate. Chairman Moody.
Thank you, Chairman White. We had three items. Item A there, I thought it was kind of interesting. When they deal with the dredging of the harbor, I don't know what it is right now, but let's say it's 49 feet and they're going to take it down to 52 feet, that extra depth there, there's a lot of good sand that's down there because it hasn't been polluted. I mean, the stuff has landed on top of it. They're going to dredge that off. But when they start deepening the harbor, they're going to end up with a lot of sand. What they're requesting, or what they requested the city to do, was to allow them to have access across Morris Island, and that sand is going to be pumped basically onto the ocean side of Morris Island to stabilize and build up that area out there. So it's kind of, to me, it's a kind of a win-win. The city gets an asset, gets it improved. The Corps has a place to put this spoil that we can all use, and so I thought that was kind of interesting, and y'all would want to know that. So, but that was approved. The second item was the council has approved the transfer of that agreement to manage the city marina and the parking facility down there, to transfer that from the city marina company to this it's Safe Harbor Marinas, I think is the name of what that state, yeah, Safe Harbor Marinas, and that's a very big company, and they're going to be taking over that. We did that, but we've authorized the mayor to kind of clean up some paperwork that we need to do, so we don't have to bring all that back. So the mayor got authority, and then we had one annexation. All those were approved, and so I would move that this report be accepted.
Any discussion?
Just one quick question. I know that once we do all the paperwork, get the transfer over to SHM, and they take over the city marina, because they're a lessee, not an owner, they will, if they're going to do any capital improvements on their parking and the like, they will put together project manuals for us. We'll get to see it long in advance of any breaking of ground. I want to make sure that they know we're interested in what goes on over there, because there's a lot of work needs to be done.
Yeah, and that was one of the sole purposes, or not the sole, but one of the major purposes behind the city marina selling out to them, was that there's a lot of capital needs down there at the city marina, and neither the city nor the city marina company had the money to do that. These people do, and it's going to be a huge improvement to our assets. So
definitely be interested to see what their plan is. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Annexation?
He included the annexation.
You did?
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. And if there's no more further business to come before the committee, we'll stand adjourned.
Bill, have you met?